So I have to say, as a gamer, the last few weeks have actually been kind of nice. I've been able to attack that backlog, even though I expanded my backlog quite massively by getting into the PlayStation 5. And yes, there was Astrobot in there, but really, there has not been a lot that's come out, aside from Astrobot, of course. But for me, I've really been able to attack that backlog a little bit. I don't know, let me know if you guys have been doing the same thing. The one thing, the downside is if I'm not talking about games that I'm playing, or the backlog that I'm going after, or sale videos, there's not a lot of other videos I can post. Now, I'm not saying that there has been no indie games that have come out. There's been a few that in retrospect I kind of wish I had covered, but there really hasn't been that much. Now, I do expect that to change in the next week or two, although luckily we did have a game drop today that I've been interested in. I think a number of people have been interested in. It's Rugrats Adventures in Gameland. Now, they do say be careful what you wish for because you may not like it, and that might be the case with this one. But either way, let's sit back and let's talk about Rugrats Adventures in Gameland. But before we get into that, please hit that like and subscribe button. Help the channel grow. It'd be amazing if we can hit 2,000 subs before 2025. I do have to start this off with a little bit of a caveat, and that is I'm biased in a way. I love the Rugrats. It's part of my childhood. I remember some of my earliest memories being, missing school and watching reruns of the Rugrats. It's just one of those comfort food kind of shows for me, and ultimately I've been a fan for a very long time. Now, I'm not one of those people that as a 30-some-year-old man, I'm still watching the show, and there's nothing wrong with that, by the way, but I will say that I have good memories of those characters and that whole vibe. So when the game was announced, I was pretty excited. Not only because graphically, the game actually looked like the cartoon used to look, but also you could switch it up to like 8-bit, like an old school style, and it just seemed like a whole package with everything looking really good. The music seemed to replicate that amazing Rugrats 90s style, and so I was hyped. Now, I did pick this game up at midnight and was done with it before I went to bed at about 2:30, so that might be a really big negative for a number of people, especially looking at the price, as this game is $24.99. Now, it does have those cool features about switching between the modern HD graphics and the 8-bit graphics, and the sound, of course, is amazing. The music is great. It does miss a little something, and if you're a Rugrats fan, you'll know what it is. And I would love to try to explain it on video, but I think it would just sound like I'm crazy. But there is something that is a little bit missing. But my point is it does have all the stuff that it says it did. It's just really short. And I do think they make up for that by making the game kind of hard and infuriating. This is one of those games that I found myself cussing at. And yes, I can't imagine that 2024 I would be screaming 4-letter words at Tommy Pickles, but here we are. And the thing is some of it has to come down to controls. They just feel a little sloppy. Some of the animations as well are not favorable to the player. There are quite a few moments when you're trying to platform through stuff and you'll get hit, and then the hit will actually knock you off your platform, causing another hit against you, and before you know it, you're dead. And it's like, that was so quick, there was absolutely nothing I could do about that. And that happens quite a bit in this game. And for me, at least my experience, it seemed like the jump button wasn't as responsive as I would like it to be. There were many times where I just felt that it was almost like I was missing something, or I was mistiming something, and that could be on me. With these type of games, I'm gonna always be completely honest and upfront and say, yeah, I kinda suck at them, so don't always base everything I say as gospel, but it just felt like there were times when the jump button was not as responsive as I would like it to be. And this resulted in many deaths, which again gets me to that point of wanting to snap your controller. At the same time though, I do recognize that this is the calling of retro gaming, and this is pretty much standard, where yeah, the game itself is relatively short, but they make it really difficult. And that's fair enough, I guess. I was just hoping that this game would be a little bit more on the side of fair but difficult, and also having a little bit more content. For me, I'm thinking of something like Chip 'n Dale's Rescue Rangers, which if you've ever played that, you would understand what I'm saying. Like, the game is a little bit longer, and it's not as difficult, but it is hard. Like, you will want to smash your controller against the ground a couple times. And yes, ultimately, I was hoping it would find this happy medium between those two. Instead, they went hardcore retro, and I respect that as well. It's just, some of the times, like I said, it felt like it was animations that got me killed, or it was just the jump button not being as responsive as I would really prefer it to be, or that I need it to be. Playing something like this compared to like Hollow Knight or Ori, you can just tell the difference. And I definitely understand the argument for you shouldn't compare retro games to modern games, and retro games are supposed to have a little bit of like jank with it. I hate using that term because I know that that's kind of insulting, especially to retro gamers. I don't mean it that way, but I'm just saying like they're not supposed to be as user friendly. Okay, fair enough, but having responsive controls is not user friendly. That's just how a game should be. And listen, I know I've kind of went off on the controls over and over, and it's really not that bad. It's not. It's just there's some moments in the game where, especially when they're relying on you to jump on a platform or an item that will spring your jump, and nailing that on a certain time is incredibly difficult, and you will find yourself in one boss fight in particular where that is the main mechanic of the boss fight. I died so many times in that, and it was pretty infuriating. And so part of me really expected like the 8-bit aspect to be difficult like that, to have that like more retro style about it, and then the HDR version to be a little bit more modern. Here's what I did not expect happening, and that is it's the exact opposite. Yes, the 8-bit experience does look retro. It looks retro, but it's actually far more forgiving than the HD version. In fact, I beat the game in the retro version. It maybe didn't look as good, although I will say that they completely do more than just throw a filter down. Like, the entire game becomes that 8-bit style, even like cutscene kind of things. So I do appreciate the hard work there. But yeah, the actual gameplay is actually easier in 8-bit than it is in HDR, which is crazy. Sorry, HD. And I just feel like that was something I didn't see coming at all. But either way, both of those presentations are actually enjoyable, especially if you like that style of game and that kind of retro platforming hardcore style game. And I know you're thinking, you just bashed this game for like the last 2 or 3 minutes. Yes and no, okay? Like, I was talking about just the animation and the controls, but as a whole, as an entire experience, it's actually pretty cool. And I think that the presentation of the game is wonderful. All the old characters are back. They look like they do with that old school style, or the HD. Either way, it's very reminiscent of my childhood in the 90s. So much of it was there, even some of the enemies harken back to that time in that cartoon, as well as the music. I mean, the music is just phenomenal. I absolutely adore it. I'm not sure if it was Mark Mothersbaugh or who did it. I believe that's his name. I can't remember for sure. I'm honestly relying on memory on that one, but it was fantastic. And if it wasn't him, that individual did an amazing job replicating his sound. So everything really was here that was promised. It was just a little bit more of a hardcore experience than I was expecting. And yes, I do think the controls could be tightened up just a tad bit. But I think for me, the make or break thing on this has got to be the value at the end of the day. Yes, you can tell a lot of love and care was put into this game, and I totally appreciate that. But $24.99 for a game that doesn't offer much more than a couple hours of gameplay seems kind of steep. Oh, I understand for some people, it's going to be fine. It's what they expect out of a retro gaming experience, and they'll just continue to play on this game and grind on it, change difficulty and all that. But if you're not one of those people who enjoys doing that, you might want to pass on this one, or at least wait for a sale. I understand that there's a number of people who are going to prefer the difficulty over the extra content. I happen to be someone who wants the opposite. I mean, bring the difficulty, whatever, but I want extra content. And again, I can't really blame the game for this because it gave everything it promised. In fact, the game itself performed really well. I never had a crash, a lag, nothing. Even switching back and forth between the two presentations, I thought that might cause a little bit of an issue, but no. And in fact, so many of the features that they promised were definitely there. This game delivered what it said it was going to. I just don't know if it really valued itself at what it should, or at least for a lot of gamers. For me specifically, no. Even when you add in the extra content of the Reptar video game, it's still just a huge price tag to put on that. Especially when you do compare it to other games games priced in that same range. I mean, the Plucky Squire is going to be like $5 more, and I'm pretty sure there's going to be quite a bit more to the game. And if I'm wrong about that, I will make a video saying Rugrats was better than the Plucky Squire. I just don't think I'm going to have to do that. My point is ultimately when I bring everything together with this game, I have to give it a 6.5 out of 10, and I'm not exactly happy about that. I just, that value knocks it down so many points. Even when you get past all the other stuff, it's just content to price tag is, in my opinion, asking quite a bit, especially when you consider that most of the price that you're paying for is for the IP alone and not the actual game. I don't know. I'm curious what your thoughts are. Are you a Rugrats fan? Are you interested in picking this one up? Or do you think I'm just completely wrong? And you're like, no, this is definitely worth it. Everything here is worth it. You're wrong. You just don't know retro gaming and you should shut up. Anything and everything in that comment section down below is much appreciated. I love each and every one of you guys. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.